Hi guys, Cameron Courtney here, Assistant Director of Health and Motions at Beale Air Force Base. Today we're going to be discussing the difference between running and jogging. Okay, so what are the differences? Well, scientists say that jogging is anything less than 6 miles per hour. They also say running is anything greater than 6 miles per hour. But for simplistic purposes, we're going to go off of perceived maximal effort here. So 0 to 100%. 50%, we're going to classify that as jogging. And running was going to be 70%.
This first video is going to be me running, so 70%. I'm going to be running on my forefoot, slight forward lean. My arms are pumping straight up and down. This next one's going to be me running again, but it's going to be slow motion. So notice how my knees are lifting. Also notice how far my legs are kicking back and tucking underneath my tailbone. Also take note of how relaxed I look. It looks mechanical, but I'm staying relaxed. Here you can see me jogging, and I'm jogging with poor form, so I'm over-exaggerating. Notice as I come by, listen to the audible difference. My feet sound like they're slapping like flippers. Sounds very sluggish. Here's a slow motion version of that. Notice my heels striking first, both the left and the right. That's causing a braking motion, which is slowing my forward momentum. All that force is channeling up my body, and you can see how I'm bobbing up and down if you look at my head. If you look at my knees, you'll notice that I have very little knee lift, and my heels are driving back not so far. My heels are also not tucking underneath my tailbone like when I was running. My arms are crossing the center of my body. My chin is tucking down towards my chest. Here's a frontal of me running. Notice how my arms are pumping more or less up and down. I'm going to use a yellow line to reference the left and right hemispheres of my body. There's very little side-to-side motion here, and all my motion is going forward. The next frontal is me jogging. Notice the side-to-side motions. I'm swinging left and right. My arms are swinging left and right instead of pumping straight up and down and forcing me to go forward. Here's a back view of me running. Notice how I'm on my toes, right? I'm on my forefoot to midfoot. Nice and springy. This next back view is of me jogging, and really notice how I'm striking with the heels and how that's causing me to rapidly decelerate. Next part is the don'ts. So on the left, I'm going to be pushing off. On the right, I'm going to be landing. We're going to start off with the head and the neck. On the left in the white circle, notice how the angle is one way, but in the yellow circle, it's pointed down further. This is showing how greatly I'm bobbing. And on the right in the yellow circle, that chin is tucking in, and it's actually causing me to choke off my airways, and we need that to run. Running is extremely reliant upon oxygen, as well as getting rid of CO2, which is basically a byproduct of expired air. Next image is of my torso. In the white circle, you're going to notice my right arm coming across the center line of my body. Some rotational movement is okay, but too much is counterintuitive to the force that is going forward. So the more I go side to side and across my body, the more I fight that forward momentum. The yellow circle on the right shows just how forward I'm leaning. Too much puts a strain on my lower back and my glutes, and too little reduces my drive forward. Elite runners usually have anywhere between 3 and 4% forward lean. Something important to note is that the bending takes place at the hips and not in the spine. You want to lean forward from your hip area, and you do not want to draw inward, because again, that can cut off your airways and harm your spine. You want your vertebrae to be stacked right over each other and not bending in. Now I'm going to move to my legs. If you look at the white circle, you're going to notice just how little of a knee bend I have. And that's not as efficient when it comes to having a great stride length. Knee lift is half the equation. The other is the leg kickback. The less you have of both, the slower you run. In the yellow circle, you can see my heel striking. Notice the angle of the leg. My leg here is almost perfectly straight. When I talk about braking, this is what I mean. Because my heel is planted and my knee is locked out straight, I'm literally slowing my forward momentum. I'm also causing all of that energy to drive up through my skeletal system, all the way through my heel, through my shin bone, through my knee, and all the way up through the rest of my body. Because my heel is the first thing to contact the ground, I still have to go to my midfoot and then my forefoot where I push off. Because of this creates a delay and causes me more ground time and delayed turnover, which equals less speed. In this next one, notice in the white circle how my legs form roughly around a 45-degree angle. Also notice the blue line represents the length in between the back of my knee and the front of my trail leg, which is the back leg. We're going to reference this later, but basically that's showing you how little I'm getting my knees up. In the yellow circle, my leg forms roughly a 90-degree angle, and it stays locked in this position, which is a bad thing. Ideally, we want our back leg to kick back as far as possible. We want that heel to then drive just underneath our tailbone. Here, it creates tension in the knee, which basically forms a spring-like effect. Our leg, then from the sit bone, kicks down and around to help us extend our stride. When you keep your leg locked in a 90, you literally have to kick it back and then drive it forward, and that expends a lot of energy and puts strain on your hip flexor. The white circle here shows us just how little space is between the heel and the ground, and that's because of what little knee lift I'm getting. The yellow circle shows, again, me heel striking, but pay close attention to the toe area. The blue line represents the distance between that toe and the ground. Because of my heel striking first, again, I have to come to the midfoot and then the forefoot. So the greater length I have between that toe and the ground, the longer my foot stays on the ground. This space is a bad space. Okay, that was what not to do. Now we're going to move on to the do's, so you get to learn how to run with efficiency. Take reference of the white circle here and then compare it to the yellow circle. Notice how these angles are not much different from each other. This shows you that my head is not bobbing like I was when I was jogging. My chin, again, is more or less neutral, so that causes me to intake oxygen and expel CO2 as I need. The more open your airways are, the better. Trust me on this. You're going to run much faster, you're not going to fatigue as fast, and you're going to feel way better. In this next white circle, my forward lean looks to be somewhere around the 3 or 4%. Notice that it matches my chin. Everything is long and leaning forward. In the yellow circle, notice the green arrows. That's showing how my arms are pumping straight up and down. Again, very mechanical, but very efficient. Now we're going to move on to my legs. In the white circle, notice the knee lift. It's a lot more prominent than when I was jogging. And again, that's causing me to lengthen my stride. That's part of the equation. The knee lift and the back kick. In the yellow circle, you'll notice how my leg is almost right underneath me. And that's great because I'm not landing on the hill, I'm landing on the midfoot. And that's causing me to have less ground time. And it allows me to propel forward way faster than with jogging. I don't have all of that leg out in front of me as where I did with jogging. Here in the next white circle, you notice the distance between the front knee and the back knee. That blue line is way longer than the jogging photo we showed earlier. Here in the yellow circle, notice how close my heel is to my sit bone. In the don'ts, we showed how my leg formed roughly a 90-degree angle and it stayed locked in that position. That's not happening here, which is a great thing. That heel is coming close to the sit bone and it's forming a spring, and that's what's going to propel me forward without expending unnecessary energy. And again, just look at that blue line. Look how it's way shorter than me jogging. Now in this white circle, we're fixated on the foot. Notice the distance between the heel and the ground. There's a lot of space here, and that's because I'm propelling forward with a lot more power. I'm getting a lot more air time, and my foot's going to be on the ground way shorter. Because of that air time, it's giving me the chance to then rock my toes forward, and I'm going to strike either on the toes or on the midfoot. In the yellow circle, you see where my foot finally plants just underneath me. In the yellow circle, you can see where my foot finally lands. You can see that I'm pushing off the front of my foot and loading all of that pressure through my tendon, which again is like another spring in our body. Whereas if you land with your heel, you get no springiness. It's all bone, and that's not as efficient. In this next photo, I wanted to convey the forces involved in running. On the left photo, you see me toeing off. That's called the push phase. I'm pushing up and forward. On the right photo, you see my foot reaching out and planting and then pulling back, and that's the pull phase. So in running, we have both pushes and pulls. The harder you push and the harder you pull, the faster and the further you'll go. Again, think of yourself like a spring lunging forward. So now we're wrapping things up here. I want to show you what the good looks like on the left and what the bad looks on the right. On the left, again, we have about a 3 to 4% lean. My spine looks to be rather tall. My chin is nice and neutral. My gaze is forward. On the right, I'm way past the 4% lean. And that's causing strain on my glutes, strain on my back. And again, I'm cutting off my airways, which is not efficient. And I'm going to fatigue way quicker. In this next one, my arms are pumping straight up and down on the left. My knee is picking up way more than when I was jogging. My toe is about to land on the ground. My heel is far from the ground. On the right, I'm rotating inward. My knee lift is little, and I'm striking with my heels, and that's causing me to break that forward momentum. In this next photo, you see on the left how much closer my heel is to my sit bone, and it even gets closer the more I bring that leg forward. You can also see how flat my front foot is. On the right, you see that my heel is way further, and then you can see how my toe is pointed up, and I am completely heel striking. Lastly, I wanted to convey the angles and how important they are. On the left, a slight forward lean, and then if you look at the bottom portion around my legs, you see that my leg is barely in front of me. My heel is just starting to tuck underneath me. On the right, you see that I'm leaning forward a whole lot more, and how my leg is reaching out way in front of me. So both of these form a V. If you think of the V and its angles, the more that I can get it to straighten out relatively, then the less I have to overcome. On the right, I am completely breaking myself. I'm slowing myself not only with that heel, but with my torso. I have a lot more to overcome. If you can lock in a slight forward lean, and you can have your feet more underneath you, you will be golden, and your body will be thanking you down the road, because you're going to be less prone to injury.
All right, guys, so we had me jogging and we had me running. And so for someone who's used to really working on their form and locking that in, it's really hard to jog, right? I found myself when I was doing those examples, having to reshoot, had to really press through the hills and lean forward and keep my knees down but not kick back as much, maybe overstride. And it was very difficult, and it was a lot on my skeletal system. It was really loud. It hurt. I felt very sluggish, and my breathing afterward was a lot more taxed. So what can we glean from that? If we get the right form, we're gonna feel much lighter. We're gonna feel a lot stronger, and it's gonna be a lot easier to propel off and not waste as much energy. Our body's gonna feel good. Our knees, I really felt that in my knees when I was jogging. And then when I ran, I felt like a feather. I felt smooth. So everything about running is just way more efficient. You saw the example of jogging and you saw the example of running. So what are the takeaways here? With jogging, you're heel striking more. You're loading the skeletal system, causing all that force to ride up the body versus loading the tendons. With running, you're running on the midfoot to forefoot, which is causing you to load the tendon, and your body basically becomes a spring, and it propels you forward with greater efficiency and a reduction of injury to the body. All right, guys, so that's a wrap on today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope that you'll tune in for further, better understanding on human performance, because we're going to put more videos out there for that. All right, have a good one.